How's it going? Matt McNeil coming to you from the garage, and I am messing around trying to figure out how to get this guy's head to explode and look like it's a, you know, a still frame from the movie where the blood and gore is coming out of the top of his head. This was my first attempt. Not perfect. And this has its sort of downsides. So let's talk about this first and then talk about what I just sort of figured out. So what do I like about this? Well, I like it feels like there's a sense of motion. Now, this isn't all of it. This is, you know, I've sort of pieced together this sort of thing based on parts. I was hoping that I'd be able to somehow create a thing that would be one piece that I could then just glue into the center of the top of his head. I don't think that's going to be possible, and quite frankly, unless I get the perfect look to this thing, it would have to be either 3D printed or cast in resin. And one of the things that I'm finding, particularly with these thin pieces, and this is a combination of different resins. Now, I've got two different resins going on. I have a 3D printer resin that I use for my 3D printer. See that stuff in there? That's resin. And I have this red resin, which this is made of, which I like the look of, right? I like the fact that it's slightly translucent. There's a little bit of transparency to it. You can see the light coming through it, and it gives you sort of a sense of motion. And again, don't judge me on this. This is like, these things are literally, if I touch it, it's going to fall apart. It's like pickup sticks. But the thing that I don't like about this is how flat these pieces are. See how flat they are? And it's going to give this impression of shards. So this is 3D resin that I cured with a UV flashlight on, on a trash bag. Just to kind of get a sense of what that would look like. I let it run a little bit. I put a UV flashlight on it. Now, do I think I could take this and coat it with something and make it better looking? I do. But the one thing I will tell you about the 3D resin is that it is pretty brittle. And that piece didn't break off. I thought it would. But the point is, it's pretty brittle, and shipping could be a problem. So then I grabbed some of my jewelry UV resin, and I made a couple of pieces with that. This right here, I can tell by looking at it, is, here, let's just take this apart. This is all kinds of little garbage pieces that I just kind of laid together. Oh, here you go. So this is jewelry resin. I put a little dye in this. I was more successful with this piece. If you can see, I put some dye in it. And I like this better than the 3D printer resin because, if I can get a focus here. Hello. Hello, there we go. Because it's flexible, and I don't think it would break in shipping. But it's kind of unwieldy. It's sort of a kind of a mess. It's sticky too, which I don't like. Now, the other downside to it, let me pull these pieces off. See, this is a great piece. This was UV resin. This was 3D printer resin. But again, super thin, right? But I like the fact that there's a little bit of dimension to it. Let's get this one out of the way. Now, this is a piece of 3D printer resin that I put the jewelry resin on, and to try to thicken it up, and it does it. It sort of makes it a little hardier and less breakable, which I think is a good thing. This piece, on the other hand, is all jewelry resin with dye in it, and it's not bad, but it's a little flimsy. And I feel like if you make it any thicker, that over time, you know, these guys are gonna just sort of like wilt, right? And you don't want that. But I do like this sort of projection, and I do like this, the fact that you can kind of see through it. So I was trying to figure out what else, besides actually printing a 3D model. Now here's a small miniature. This is kind of what my original intention was going to be. If I can get a focus. Oh my gosh, this phone is acting crazy. And this is great if you could print this. I tried to print this at a larger scale, and it failed. And if you look in there, there's all kinds of supports that would be a total nightmare to get out. But this is still an idea. I'm talking, again, I think I mentioned it with Tim over at Four Seal about helping build me a model that will print successfully. And so this isn't something that I've abandoned. But again, we're dealing with that 3D UV resin, which is brittle. So I started thinking, well, what can you use that's not brittle, that has enough body to it that it's not going to wilt? And what occurred to me was hot glue is pretty rubbery in a really good way. And if you cool it very quickly, it won't keep moving, and you can get some organic shapes out of it. So over here, I took some hot glue. Of course, I don't have a glove on, but that's okay. I can show you anyway. I don't mind getting stuff on my hands. So I took a piece. I took some hot glue and I dumped it in that cold water. It made a shape. Oh, come on! It made a shape, and of course, when I first did it, it was clear. So then I took some perma-blood and I put that perma-blood on it to give it some color. And if you look, it's still got that same sort of cool transparency to it. And, you know, it'll hold its shape. It won't break in transit. And I don't know, man. I think this could be a way to go. And the other thing that's cool about it is you can keep messing with it once you've made your shape. So here's a shape, right? A giant glob of sinew and blood spatter that I then heated with a heat gun and twisted so that now we're getting some depth. We're not flat. We can put these bad boys in there, arrange them all around, and make sort of a crown of these things that I can also bond together. This focus is driving me crazy. That I can also bond together with more hot glue. And what is hot glue? It's just plastic, but it's flexible. So I think I might be onto something with this. It's just a test for now, but that's kind of where I'm at, trying to figure all this out. But that's the idea is, you know, I want these sort of like tendrils like shooting out of his head. But I do know that if someone buys one of these, I got to put it in the mail. And I also know that in 5 years, I don't want it to wilt on your shelves. I want everybody to go, holy moly, this thing has lasted and the materials are good. And he did testing and figured out what would last. And so far, to be honest with you, this hot glue thing looks like a winner. Now, this is another piece of the 3D resin that I've coated with perma-blood to see if perma-blood will protect it from breaking. But I'm telling you, this stuff is pretty brittle. Yeah, see, like that. Man, you put that in the mail. I don't trust the USPS. I'm afraid that will come off and break. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Just kind of messing around with the idea of these sort of blood tendrils. And maybe it's a combination of all of these things, right? Maybe the larger pieces around the perimeter will be hot glue, and the inner pieces will be a combination of maybe even both jewelry, UV resin, and 3D resin. I just know that when we start getting this amount of projection on these, it gets brittle. The shorter, smaller pieces are not a problem. It just sort of seems like when we start getting out here. But anyway, there you go. That's what I'm up to today. I'm just trying to figure this out, taking a break from texturing. If you can look, I'm putting some texture on this guy now. Certainly I'm going to knock all that texture down, but I'm going to wait until I get the neck and all of that stuff textured, which you'll never see, but I'll know is there. So I'm going to throw some texture on there as well. But anyway, hope everybody's having a nice Sunday afternoon. I am hanging out in the garage and trying to figure out how to blow this guy's head up. Hope everybody's having a good day. Talk to you soon.